Mr. Tyler.
What's up?
How are you doing?
I'm all right. A little tired.
A little tired?
Little tired. Holidays coming up, so it is Tuesday. Thanksgiving is Thursday. I
Mm-hmm.
did not record a midweek this week. A lot going on, and Doug had emailed me late, checked in with me. He's like, I don't know if I have time to edit something this week. So we decided to bump that because it'd get released on Thanksgiving. So it's been a lot of work lately every year coming into the holidays. So I'm a little bit burnt out, but all things considered, I'm all right. You?
I'm good. Um, I'm good. There's
Yeah.
been a lot going on. I feel like my days are just slammed. Mondays are my site visits. I'm on every job site and, trying to fit meetings in between. And today, as you said, it's Tuesday. I've been in the office all day. And it's the never ending to do list. I shouldn't say never ending. I feel like I'm actually getting quite a bit done and making a lot of great progress on things that I've been not prioritizing. And for that, for the sake of that, um, it feels good to make progress, especially as we round out the year end here.
Yeah. I recently I've been getting in bed, and when I lay in bed, I'm like, oh my God, I'm already in bed again already. Like, I feel like this just happened. It's so crazy. I like every time I go to get in bed, I'm like, I feel like I was just in bed.
There's that great
Uh,
construction meme of like, what's it like to be in construction, and the guy like lays in bed, and as he hits the pillow, the clock goes off, and he gets back out of bed and he leaves.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it's felt
Yeah.
like, lately, and I don't typically feel like that, but I go back to I remember I listened to a podcast a long time ago where it's like there's seasons of life, there's times you're gonna be happy, there's times you're gonna be sad, stressed, that's all part of it. You can't have one without the other, so when you ask me how I'm doing, yeah, I'm okay, like, I've been happier, I've been sadder, I've been more rested, I've been less rested. I'm right now. I'm okay. Getting done what I need to get done, controlling what I can control. Everyone's healthy. Holidays are coming up, so I can't complain.
Well, with that being said, I'm excited about our guest today, Tyler. JP Dinnell is part of the Echelon Front crew, which Jocko and Leif Babin put together. I was lucky enough to attend the council meeting that is one of their events held in very north Washington State, and spent some time with JP. And, today we're going to talk about leadership. Interestingly, he opens the podcast up with a troubling event that he's having with a brand new home he
Oh
bought,
yeah,
which is wildly relatable to Tyler's life right now. But then we get into the nuances of, leadership and team and culture and hiring and firing and promoting and all of those things. And, the cliff notes, for those that are only going to listen to this point, which would be insane, is that it's back to the basics.
yeah. One thing that we didn't really even dig into that much that just really resonated with me, and he had spoken about on a couple other podcasts I listened to, was emotional detachment.
Mm.
And that's something that it's like, yeah, I need to learn to better myself when it comes to like emotionally detaching myself from a situation and approaching it from that perspective rather than it's tough when you're involved in every single aspect of a project and the blood, the sweat, literally blood, sweat, and tears. It's tough. Like you're emotionally attached to your customers, your projects, deadlines, schedules, but I need to do a better job of emotionally detaching from projects and situations. But there's a lot of good information here. Nothing earth shattering, so to speak, which is like reaffirming,
Yeah.
because it's like, yeah, I need to step back and make sure that I have all the little things in line, and you can get all this under control. So I enjoyed that conversation.
Guys, big shout out to our sponsors, Buildertrend and Andersen Windows. You know what the easiest way to install a window wall is?
I feel like this is a trick question.
Andersen Easy Connect.
Ah, I should have known that. Anderson's Easy Connect joining system delivers the ultimate in job site conveniences, making it easier to install the large combinations homeowners desire while also reducing job site resources needed. In fact, most contractors surveyed said that they could reduce the number of installers by 50% using the Anderson Easy Connect joining system.
It's available on the A series and the 100 series. This patented system, large window combinations are split into smaller subgroup combinations that are factory assembled, have all the necessary joining components applied, and arrive ready to install directly into the rough opening, making installation at the job site easier.
The patented reinforced joining system utilizes interlocking fiberglass joining plates, offering design flexibility without compromising performance. This system is tested to AAMA 450 and is Hallmark certified for air, water, and structural performance. Reinforced joining with A series windows is also high velocity hurricane zone approved. Learn more on Anderson's website in the link in the description of this episode.
Don't let change orders slow down your projects. With Buildertrend's project management software, builders get their change orders approved 33% faster than other methods.
The digital change order tool allows you to collect client signatures online so you know you're protected in the case of a dispute.
Our friend Matt Reisinger of Reisinger Build, I'm sure you already knew that, even said when we didn't have proper documentation, we had a client who didn't want to pay the bill. So I put my family and my company at risk because it was a six-figure mistake. Using the tools that are available through Buildertrend, we've made sure that this mistake has not happened again.
Protect your business with one place to create and capture all change orders by signing up for Buildertrend today. Schedule a free demo by going to buildertrend.com/MC demo.
Mr. JP,
What's going on, y'all?
How
how are
are
you?
you?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. Oh, you got that pro background. I just saw you moving it around.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Nice. How are you?
I'm great. How have you been?
Been good, man. Um, we met at Council 2.
Yes, sir. I remember.
Um, and it was funny. It was either I think it was you that had asked me if what other events I had been to. I
Hmm.
got asked a handful of times, and I was like, "No, this is my first event." And everyone's like, you usually are supposed to go to some of the smaller events before you show up to this one."
Well,
Uh, but hey, there I was.
as long as
Um,
you're there and got something from the training that you've been able to apply to your personal and professional life, it doesn't really matter. You know.
yeah. JP, you don't know Tyler, so Tyler is my counterpart here at the podcast.
How's it going? Good to
So,
meet you.
Tyler, how are you, man?
Not too bad. It's just crazy. We're just talking to Nick offline. It's crazy this time of year trying to close stuff out and get customers in their houses and holidays. It's
Yeah,
just it's nonstop.
we're having the joy. My wife and I, we bought a house in May. We moved into it in June because the owners did a lease back for a month, and since we moved in here, we've been having nonstop issues with the house. And so, to make it even more complicated, the guy that sold us a house, so it was his house. He was the listing agent, and he was also the builder. So
Mm,
there's a lot of unique things happening, and so like the house is less than 3 years old, and we're having foundation problems, which we should be having, obviously.
damn.
So the retaining wall from the front of the house that goes around to the back has like 10 major. There's all these things, and so
Did you buy my customer's house? I feel like you're in my customer's house right now.
maybe I'm just like, dude, what the heck's going on? So, anyways, so I'm hoping. So in Texas, you have foundations like up to 10 years covered by the builder's warranty and all this other stuff. Um, but he's very evasive on us being able to have conversations. And I'm almost to the point now where I'm like, hey, man, we need to sit down and talk, or the next step is you'll be hearing from a lawyer. And I don't
Yeah,
want to do that. Like, I don't want to do that at
right.
all. But I also feel, and I've been giving him the benefit of the doubt. I'm like, hey, man, I don't think that you knew about these things. I don't think that you hid these things. I don't think that But when you avoid meeting up and having conversations to give me the plans for the building of the house so that I can have the plumber, dude, the the plumbing to the guest house was linked in with the irrigation system, not the actual plumbing. So the same water that sprinkles, I mean, it's the same water that goes to water the yard is what's been feeding our guest house.
So you're either treating your irrigation water or not treating your guest
Yeah,
house.
exactly. Pretty cool, right? So
Mhm.
it's just whatever. First world problems. Hey,
Yeah.
which I understand. So
You're literally in the wild, wild west.
crazy, man. It's all good because these problems mean that we have a nice house, and these problems mean that we're able to buy a home, and these problems mean that it's you know, you know how many people live in, you know how many people would love to have the problems that we're having right now because it
Yeah.
means they'd be in our house and in our neighborhood. So we're good, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I I am so obviously I want to talk about leadership today, and
yeah,
I think that, you know, our industry as a whole really struggles with leadership and mentorship, and we're always go 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 go, and we don't spend enough time training. But starting off the conversation about issues that you're having on the other side, the consumer side, when you're faced with that situation, obviously you kind of summarize that in a manner that, hey, listen, this is first world problems. Like, it's not that big a deal. Like, my life is great. Yes, I have foundation issues, but we'll come to a resolution at some point. But in that moment, or dealing with a situation that is, you know let's just call it unfair, where you bought something knowing one thing and you're ending up facing, a
yeah,
completely different thing. And you're being extremely reasonable by just, hey, let's just chat about this. I don't want to take it to a legal escalation. But, you know, what is that like? What is that process for you? Someone that has been, professionally trained in, kind of the leadership mentality, and, of course, taking extreme ownership, is oftentimes what is implied here. But how do you work through a problem like that that's directly related to? I mean, I'm sure your family is like, JP, what's up? Like, why are we in this house? Like, we've been here for less than a year and we have all these issues. This
yeah,
was a huge mistake. How are
yeah.
you navigating that?
So the way I navigate it is try. Keyword try is to stay detached from my emotions. Now I have lost my temper a few times, not to this guy, not to anybody else, but just in general when I'm like, the front door of the house won't stay shut because it's the foundation is shifted, right? To the point where, like, unless we deadbolt the front door, it doesn't stay shut. And I just literally want to just punch a hole through the door,
Now I feel like you're in my house.
and then, we have this little, we call it a spool because it's not a pool and it's bigger than a spa, but that's been leaking since we moved in. Now, it wasn't leaking when we did a walk through the house and the inspection, but
Mm.
magically, the week we move in, that thing starts leaking and there's cracks in the retaining wall. The front of the retaining wall is literally broken. Like, Nick, I could send you a picture and you'd be like, wait, what? How? And it
But
just,
none of this stuff showed up during the inspection?
so the retaining wall did, and they were supposed
Oh,
to fix it. And but here's
okay.
the thing, like we've been super smart in documenting everything. The retaining wall is cracked. They're supposed to fix it. Well, guess what they did? They just put mortar over it. They didn't
Mhm.
fix anything. And
They made it look good.
yeah, they just, try to make it look good. And so all the foundation problems, which, I mean, I've been around construction my whole life. My dad's done construction, and we've asked enough people. You don't, for a house, like when you put in the bathrooms, the kitchen, and the baseboards, you don't put white caulking all over everything. You don't do that. You know what this whole house has?
Mm.
White caulking everywhere. That as you look, you can see it. They did that to cover up the fact that there's separations from the foundation shifting. So there's a lot of things that they didn't do properly that are in our favor. So I remind myself, hey, ultimately we're going to come out on top because we're doing the right thing. We're not being unreasonable. It's
Mhm.
like, hey man, we paid a lot of money for a nice house that's less than 3 years old. It shouldn't be having these issues. And I'm trying to be reasonable and say, hey, let's talk through these things. And hey, let's just get it handled through your builder's warranty insurance because you're supposed to carry that. And in Texas, it's less than 10 years old. Your foundation is good for up to 10 years. So I literally have the top companies in the nation that I'm working with, and
Mhm.
they're guiding me through all these things. So to answer your question, I try to stay detached from my emotions because, as the three of us know, making emotional decisions is never going to be good. Losing your
Mhm.
temper never works out. Trying to like use fear and intimidation never works out. And ultimately, like I would like to have a good relationship with this guy because he lives in our community. He built our
Yeah.
neighborhood. So two of our neighbors work for him. It's like, do I
Yeah.
want conflict? No. Now I'm not going to back down and be a pushover and allow you to use your status in this community to that I'm going to be fearful of like getting things taken care of. Like, no, it's going
Mhm.
to be done the right way. Um, and also understanding that a lot of these things, actually, all of these things can be fixed. It's just at what cost? Like, is it going to
Yeah.
cost us? Is it going to cost him? The other thing, Nick, that it's been really hard for me to do is when we bought this house, we did it over a handshake. The
Mm.
guy, we were the first people to look at the house. And now there's two ways to think about this. And I know that there's two ways to go is now when we looked at the house, you know, we were the first ones to look at it and there's other people waiting outside, like outside the gate to like come check out the house. And they had like booked appointments the whole weekend. And I asked the guy, I'm like, hey, what are the next steps for us to buy this home? And he's like, well, talk with your wife and, give me an offer this weekend. And I'm talking with Amanda and, she's has tears in her eyes because it's a beautiful home and she's so excited. And we've been trying to buy a home for years and all of them kept falling through.
Yeah.
And so I just look at the guy and I'm like, hey, can I buy your home? And we did it over a handshake. And here's the deal, the guy honored that. He didn't try to jack up the prices. He didn't play any games because the other thing, Nick, that I know he could have done, whether he knew about these things or not, he could have allowed us and everybody else to get into a bidding war that
Yeah.
weekend. And honestly, we would have been outbid. People were coming in with crazy deal that we just was like, hey, you know what? Congratulations that you can afford that.
Mhm.
Congratulations. I can't play that game. And so there was this understanding of, and Amanda and I talked about it, and I have to keep reminding myself, hey, how much would we have paid for this house?
Mhm.
Like, what would we have gone above? Like,
Mhm.
how much? So let's say we paid 100 grand. Would we go 110? Would we go 125? Would we go 150? I know that's like those numbers are whack in proportion, but I'm
Sure.
just saying like we have this number that it's like, hey, would we have spent up to X amount? Okay, cool. All right. Well, at the end of the day, if we have to spend our own money to get all this stuff fixed and it's below that number, are we still coming out on top?
Yeah.
And so that's a really hard mindset to maintain, man,
I
because the
well, I
vic-
think it's
the
I
victim
think it's good. Sorry.
I was just gonna say the victim mindset comes in real quick where it's like he screwed me over, he knew about
Mhm.
this stuff, fuck him, you know what I mean? Where you just
Right.
want to go hard and go aggressive back on him, and then it's like then you realize and you have to understand like, well, that never works, like long term, strategically that never works. And two, like, hey, if I can just maintain reasonable conversations and just keep everything documented with this guy, he will dictate where
Mhm.
this goes. It's not going to be me, and I mean that in regards to like he'll determine the path that we take. Do we have reasonable conversations? And he helps fix these things. Ultimately, he fixes them all because it's all within the warranty of what should have been taken care of and done.
Mhm.
Okay, if he doesn't, then okay, how much of it will he? And then we do the rest. Worst case, I take him to court, and there's lawyers involved. And that's the other thing I have to figure out. It's like, okay, how much am I willing to spend on lawyers?
Yeah.
So,
I think this is I mean, I think the difficult thing here, and I'm sure he's already processed through his mind, is like, I gave JP such a good deal. I shook his hand, like I didn't put this to a bidding war. And, Tyler and I have talked about it where it's like you make these concessions for clients early on. You upgrade something, you do something nice, you do something for free, and it's never remembered. And in your situation, this is the extreme example where it's like you should be happy you got it for under the price. I could have sold it for, you know, $100,000 more instead. You got a deal on it. It's like, sure. and I understand that, but I also got a deal on it with the understanding that I was buying a house that was 100%, not a
Yes.
house that was going to have all of these failures. But it's really hard to balance that mindset because, the other side of it is exactly what you said, where you go into it thinking he knew about this, he knew the foundation was cracking, that pool was always leaking, and he was just filling it up every morning before people came over, and it's like,
Yeah.
and and that for me is something that I have I struggle with, where when I'm in a situation like that, I do spiral into thinking about all of the things that the other person could have thought or put into place or considered, or like they did it because this, where it's like all of that is made up. Like I'm making this scenario up in my mind.
Yeah, and that made up scenario might be accurate, but it also might not be. So I can't put too much time and effort into something that I just don't know the facts on. So to bring this back to like a leadership standpoint, you focus on what you can control. Like, why am I going to waste time and energy on things that I cannot control?
Mhm.
And okay, what's the best thing that I can do to have an outcome that is in my favor? It's develop a relationship with the guy. As much as I don't want to do that,
Mhm.
actually I do, but you know what I mean? Like your ego says I don't want to do that. Like as
That'd
much
be so hard for me to do because I feel like
yes,
I don't even know your situation, and I feel like this dude hit all the shit.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Like,
so like you have the financial burden of this. For me, that's not even as bad as the emotional burden, where it's
yeah,
like my family's living in this house, in this neighborhood. It's not even what you paid for it or what it's worth. It's like the
yeah,
emotional burden of living in a home that's like this, that you saved up for, that you thought was like, that this is where I need to be, this is where my family needs to be, and now you're like, okay, so even we get this all paid for, where are we going to move out of the house? Is our house going to be disrupted at this point when it's costing him all this money? Is it going to be done right? To
yeah.
me, that's where it's like, this is not worth any of this.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard because it's a house that we really like in a neighborhood that we like on property that we like, and so and like it has all these things that we wanted, and it's just one of those things where all these things started going bad as soon as we sold it. And so yeah, I mean, dude, that's the hard part is building that relationship with them. But here's a guarantee. If I have a if I have a conflict with him, right, an adversational, or what's the word that I'm looking for, adversary type of relationship with him, like if we don't have just even a basic working relationship and there's conflict, does it
Mhm.
make my situation better or worse? It makes it worse all day
Yeah.
long. It makes it so even if he did know about all these things, even if he did cover up all the things, which I not the more things that we find and look like I'm looking around and I'm getting mad looking at the white caulking that's now separated from the floor of my office. It's like nobody does that. Nobody caulks the baseboards unless you're
Mhm.
trying to hide separation. That's why you do that. And you know, and so here's the thing: even if he did know about all these things and he hid all these things, having conflict doesn't help me. So
Mhm.
you know what I need to do is build a working relationship with them where, you know, I can at least have conversations with them and we can find alignment on how we get these things fixed. Whether it's him, getting them all fixed and we pick who does the work because it's like, no, I'm not using your people again. We're not going to use your builders that built this home. Nope.
Mhm.
That's already a strike. They're done. And it's like we bring in our own people. Um, I mean, we just got a quote like the plumbing to the guest home. For them to do it, it's going to be just under $13,000. I'm like,
To
you got
Yeah, to connect it to our actual water source.
You're also going to be dealing with contractors who weren't associated with the project, who now it's like they're these issues that I'm tying myself into. So you're going to be getting some sort of asshole pricing because it's like
yeah,
whatever we touch, we own.
yep,
And there's already issues. So it's like they're trying to cover themselves. So
yep.
what happens if obviously you can go to court, but like I feel like there's going to have to be legalities brought into this, even if it's like, okay, we'll fix it, then it's our builders, we'll put the money out, then recoup it. You're going to have to go that avenue regardless.
Yeah, maybe. And if we do, then it's like, all right, cool. Well, then new warranties get put in place.
Yeah. It's just terrible that you have to be in that. I'm literally going through this exact same thing with a customer of mine who bought a house from a builder who was, it wasn't a new build, but they bought it. I think they bought it as a flip, and then the market crashed, and then they flipped it, lived in it for a few years, and then they were the listing agent on it.
Mm,
And at first glance, the house appears beautiful. There's so many issues,
yeah.
major issues, structural, water issues, all of these things. So now the customer is paying all of this money to get them fixed. We're having issues with the designer, and I'm in the position where all my customers are paying for everything, and I don't feel as though it should be on them. And it's like, what's the recourse here? What's the avenue? And I literally just drafted up an email and sent it today outlining fixes that have to happen for me to stand behind my product and who I believe should be paying for them. And I feel as though I'm going to get backlash on that from the parties that I feel are responsible for paying for the fixes because of shortcomings on their end. And I'm like, at the end of the day, what do I do? Like, do I just make it right and then try and recoup what I can? And this isn't on the customer's behalf; it's the
Mhm.
other people who are involved. Am I smart by even getting involved and sticking my nose where it doesn't belong in the first place, or do I just do my job and shut up? It's a really difficult position to be in, and I don't know if there's a really great outcome to it. Like at the end of the day, it is easy, like you said, to have this victim mindset because no matter what happens, you're going to have that in your mind where it's like we kind of got boned here. No
Yeah,
matter what way you slice it, which is difficult for me. And I think that's where you said the emotional detachment, that's something to me that I struggle with so much, being so close to my work, that I find a very interesting um coping mechanism, because I think that that's one of the hardest things to do, to be able to detach from a situation emotionally.
it is. That's why we say detachment is a superpower.
Yeah.
Well, here's the deal in regards to the question that you just asked, or it was a statement, but kind of a question. You do the right things for the right reasons, and that's up to you to decide.
Mm.
You do the right things for the right reasons. And when you do that, your reputation will be, hey, you know what? These guys do the right things. They take care of us and they tell us the truth. And they fight for us and they make sure that we're taken care of. And when you do that and you have that reputation, well, that grows your business. And it also sets the tone in a professional manner for other people, knowing that, hey, you know what? We're not going to be able to get something past these guys.
Yeah.
Let's go play with somebody else. Which sucks that there are people like that, but there are scumbags, there are dirtbags in every
Mm.
industry all across the world. It doesn't
It
matter what the industry is, they're there.
Yeah, it's interesting, like, to think I'm listening, Tyler, to you explain that email and think about how many people you're gonna put in a position of being super uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, all of these parties that you're essentially saying, "Hey, this person is responsible for the shortcoming," and thinking about what that could do to them, you know, emotionally, but also, like, they could go and slander your name around, like,
Yeah. How do you do
poorly.
that without exposing them to everybody? Can you do it to where these are one on one conversations?
That was like the struggle that I had for so long, because the homeowners were unaware, like they're aware of the issues from buying the house, and I don't think that there's any recourse on that, but I'm having issues on the design end now, and with materials and designs that were provided to me. And I didn't go to the homeowner for a long time because I was brought onto the job from the designers. So I was trying to salvage a relationship with the designers and do right by them. And then I'm like, speaking with Nick, speaking with other people, and it's exactly what you just said. At the end of the day, I need to be truthful to my customers and
Mm,
truthful to myself. And the right thing to do is to stand behind what I'm doing. And if I tarnish the relationship with the designer, so be it. They can do and say whatever they want. at the end of the day, I'm protecting my company and my customer, even if that customer was brought to me by somebody else. And I think that I would want somebody to do the same for me. So that was somewhat of the impetus for the route that I have to go now. And I had the conversation with the customer and was like, listen, I'll go to bat for you because this is what's important to me. And this is what I'm going to say. And here's my email that I'm going to send them. You let me know if it's throwing you under the bus, whatever you want, however you want this altered, send it back to me with whatever changes you want made, and then I'll send it off, and I'll be the person who goes to bat and leads this conversation. And that's where it left off realistically right before we hopped on the podcast, where it's like, at this point I'm going to stand beside my customers and stand up for myself, and we're on the same page, and then I will be in charge of going to the designer and working through whatever we have to get this job so that everyone on my side of things is happy. um, I tried to shield everyone from this for a really long time, and at the end of the day it just gets super convoluted, and I'm not really, unfortunately, I have to pick a side, and I'm not really picking a side. And I felt that I was doing this dance that was just frustrating and stressful. And now I'm just like, all right, this is the right thing to do. Now let's just go through with it and figure out how we get to the end and close this job out.
Yeah, and and Tyler, when you look at it from the principles that we teach at Echelon Front, everything's based around the extreme ownership mindset. It's the best thing that you can do is find a way, if it's possible, not to tarnish that relationship. You find a way to take ownership, and that's the hardest thing, is because our ego gets in the way. Like, okay, hey, how do you take ownership? Like, how do we take ownership of this situation? And I was talking with my wife about it the other day. I said, we should have got a better inspector. We made an emotional decision because we were happy that the guy shook our hand. We've been
Mhm.
trying to buy a home for over 2 years. We did not detach from our emotions. We didn't take the time to do due diligence with multiple inspectors. We didn't think like, hey, I was like, now, like, knowing what we know now, there's so many things that we should have done differently. So many things that we should have done differently. And so when you find ways to take ownership over a screwed up situation, it changes the game. And that way it can make it to where you don't tarnish the relationship. Like, and that's the route that I'm going with this guy. Like, the next email that I send is, I'm literally going to list all the things that I should have done differently, and explain to him like, hey, I understand this is my responsibility. I bought the home. However, like, there's also your responsibility as the builder, and I want us to do this the right way, professionally,
Mhm.
without legal getting involved. And so I think, Tyler, you can do a version of what you're talking about while taking ownership and saying, hey, you know what? Like, I should have been a little more hands on with, with this aspect of the work. And, I didn't help follow up. I don't know the details, right?
Yeah.
So, but if you can find ways to connect yourself to the problem and say, hey, so there's 4 steps to having this hard conversation and to work through these problems. The first one is identifying the problem. All right. So you identify the problem. And then step 2, it's you take ownership, or step 2 is you explain the consequences, right? So step 2 and 3 are interchangeable. So you identify the problem, you explain the consequences, you take ownership, and then you help provide a solution, and also give ownership of them having a part of that solution as well. And that helps you have these really hard conversations. And that's what I've been doing with this guy in text messages and in now emails. Is like, every time we're talking about something, I'm explaining the problem, the consequences that it has to my family. I take ownership over like, hey, these are things I didn't think of, or hey, I should have reached out to you about this sooner. It's continuously getting worse. Hey, here's what we need to do. And so it's a framework of doing the right things for the right reasons. Like, I'm still finding ways to take ownership over what's happening. And I'll tell you what, it's made the conversations easier,
Mhm.
because I'm not, and that's the other thing, is like, you've got to also protect your emotions and your energy, because you can waste a lot of energy and a lot of emotions by playing the victim card, by blaming other people, because it makes you feel helpless. And that's a dangerous thing. And as a leader, we need to be in a position where we're taking control over our emotions, our attitude, our work ethic, our integrity, our discipline, and leading the people around us to do the same thing. And sometimes the best way that we can lead the people not around us, like not directly working with us, is through our attitude and through the example that we set to them. And if you do all those things, and at the end of the day, this person still wants to cast blame and not take responsibility, you've done the right thing. And
Yeah.
you know you've done the right thing. And you can show people that you did the right thing and you handled it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what like at the end of the day, what's the final outcome and at what cost? And then I in the situation I'm in, which it sounds like it's very similar to the situation you're in, you get tired of the shit. And it's like, at what point are we just going to cut the shit? Like, for you to own and spend all of this time and all of this energy doing this, like, this guy has to know what the right thing is. And to me, it's like, if he were going to do the right thing, he would have already done it. So, like, how much energy do we waste on these people and these things where it's like, let's just cut to the chase at this point, figure out where we have to go, because
Well,
you
so
don't seem as though you're going to fix
So
this.
that's, I mean, that's like, in my mind, that's just an escalation of counseling. Like when you look at it from like a leadership aspect, like, say Nick's working for me and he's not doing the right thing. And, so I take ownership over that. I say, hey, Nick, we're supposed to be at the job site at 8 a.m. You showed up at 8:15. Like, hey, man, that's my fault for not making it clear, like why we need to be here ready to work at 8 o'clock. Is everything all right? And Nick's like, yeah, man, I was just running behind. My kid was sick this morning and I lost track of time and I'm really sorry. And I'm like, cool, no factor, man. Like, just remember, we got to be here ready to work at 8, not show up at 8, but ready to
Yeah.
work at 8. And Nick's like, cool, no factor. And guess what? The next day, he's on time and he continues to be on time. Let's
What if
say,
I'm not?
well, yeah. So if you're not, let's say the next day or a week later, you're not on time. And I go up to Nick and I say, hey, Nick, how are you doing? Good, man. Hey, man, I need to talk to you real quick. Is now a good time? And Nick's like, yes or no. And if he says no, I said, cool. When's a good time that we can sit down? I just need to chat with you for 5 minutes to get alignment. I want to
Mm-hmm.
get alignment with Nick, right? And I don't want him to be defensive. I don't want him thinking I'm attacking him because I want alignment with Nick. Nick works with me. I want alignment with him. That's my goal for everything. And so Nick says, yeah, actually, hey, we can talk right now for sure. What's going on? I say, hey, man, last week, we talked about being here ready to go at 8 a.m. And, last week, I know your kid was sick, you're running behind. It was not a big deal because I know it wasn't intentional, but you showed up late again today. I just want to make sure, is everything okay? Is there anything that you need? Is there anything that we can help you with? And Nick's like, no, man, I just, I didn't get a lot of sleep last night, the new baby, and, it's got me and my wife up. And so I'm tired. I'm like, all right, hey, cool. Hey, man, I get it. We all have a lot of things going on. Nick, man, I need your help. I need you to be here ready to go at 8 a.m. because when you don't show up on time and everybody else has been here on time working, and it makes you look bad and it makes our relationship look bad. Like, I don't care about you being here on time and that I have double standards. And we both know that's not the case. So, hey, unfortunately, if you show up late again, I'm going to have to write you up. Like, and I don't want to write you up, but I'm actually going to have to write you up, and it's going to be a performance write up for your inability to show up on time. So I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Nick, if you show up late again, what will I have to do? And Nick repeats it back to me. I say, all right, cool. Hey, we're on the same page, Nick. I don't want to write you up. You're a good dude. I appreciate your hard work. And I know the industry we work in is not easy, but I need you here ready to go at 8 a.m. If there's anything you need for me to help with,
Mm.
let me know.
So
So,
so say I quit because of that. Like,
okay.
what's your yeah.
Yeah.
That's really like that's you're digging into what I wanted to talk about. It's like
Yeah.
that's for me similar situations, not so much people showing up on time, but essentially wrote a couple of my team members up and it was like, listen, exactly what you said. I outlined like, hey, you're doing a great job. I appreciate you. We just need to be better. And here are the specifics in terms of like where I think we can be better. And I want to be helpful. This isn't a you thing. This is an us thing. Let's work together.
Yeah.
And ultimately they left. And for me, it's, you said something a couple minutes ago about feeling helpless,
Mhm.
and how us as leaders, we need to work through that and not feel helpless, and feel as though we're in control of the situation and
Yeah.
control our emotion. Um, and I want to go back to that for a minute, because I know that when you said that, a lot of people just you triggered a lot of people, because I know a lot of people feel helpless in this industry, and being a lot of business owners listen to this podcast. And when to ask the question point blank, for someone like you, are there times where you do feel helpless and you slip into that?
So explain to me that a little bit deeper in regards to like why would I as a leader feel helpless? You mean like when people quit,
Well,
like because I write them up and they're not
sorry,
performing?
I went down two directions there. I went back to, you were talking earlier about the feeling of helplessness, and when you're out of control of a situation,
Yeah.
or you let emotion get in the way.
Yes. Yes.
um
Okay.
and it was more just, I think I know the answer. The answer is, like, everyone at some point or the other feels helpless,
Yes.
and it's a matter of how you react to it, and get out of it. And I wanted to call attention to it, because I think a lot of people hear you say, no, I'm trained. I know what I'm doing. I'm a good leader, and I won't allow myself to feel that way. But that the reality is we're human, and we do feel that way,
Yeah.
and we have to react to it. Going back to my first example is, yeah, when people leave, it's deflating. Like, I think that for a leader, when someone, is giving up on the mission, right?
Yeah.
And I talked to you about this before. I talked to Leif about this, and it's like, you think as the leader, everyone's there for the same reason, or you like to believe that. And when, this guy's like, you know what, man, like, if you're gonna write me up because I'm gonna be late 10 minutes, then I don't want to work for you, someone like you. And I've had that conversation with someone, and it's like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's hard, Nick. And so to answer this question scenario, and then the other thing that it's all tied in, when you take ownership, it takes away the feeling of feeling helpless.
mm,
Like when I start to find ways to take ownership because I believe that it is my responsibility to solve the problem. I believe that it was my fault, right? Nick, you work for me. If you show up late, it's my fault. It's my fault because I didn't reiterate to you how important it is for us to be there on time. I didn't make you feel like you were an important part of us accomplishing the mission. You don't understand the why. You're not bought into it. You don't believe in the mission. Those are all things that come from me as your boss. That's why it is my responsibility if you show up late. And if you quit, then it is also my responsibility for that environment that I created. And now I have to learn my lesson and say, okay, cool. So I'm going to go. And so let's say I write you up for being late and you're like, yeah, you know what? Screw you. I don't need to deal with this. I'm going to go work for somebody else. And I'm like, well, you know what, Nick, I'm really sorry because obviously I failed you as a leader for you to not understand how important you are to us here at this company.
mm,
And we have standards for a reason. And I clearly did not communicate those to you. And I obviously do not have a good enough relationship with you to where you couldn't have come and talked to me. You didn't feel like you could come talk to me about these problems ahead of time. I'm really sorry. I appreciate all the hard work that you've given me. If there's anything I can do for you in the future, please let me know. And I'm going to keep it professional and I'm
mm,
going to take ownership over the fact of you not being bought into the mission and not understanding big picture what's best. Because if you quit for those reasons, that's different than you getting a really good opportunity, right? You get a
yeah.
good opportunity somewhere else. That's a different conversation.
Hmm.
And that's fine. I'm going to be like, you know what? Hey, man, I'm really happy for you. I support that. If there's anything I can do, let me know. But this scenario, this is a culture problem. This is a cultural problem that I created. So I've got to find a way to take ownership over that. And when I take ownership, it allows me not to feel like I'm a victim. It allows me to feel like I'm in control. And it allows me to, dictate the situation moving forward. And, let's say that happens. So what I'm going to do immediately is I'm going to call in all my people, like at the nearest or the soonest opportunity. And I'm going to readdress the standards that we have. And I'm going to explain to them like, hey guys, I have failed you all and I failed Nick. Nick just quit because he's been late the last couple of days. You guys know our policies. If you're late you know, more than 2 times, you get written up. And Nick quit because I was writing him up. And that's a failure of me as your guys' leader. And I just want to make sure that we are all on the same page in regards to why we show up ready to work on time. And actually, you know what? I would like your guys' feedback. I want your guys' opinion on if you guys think that these standards that we have set in place are fair. Because in order for us to achieve excellence at a high level, which all of you guys are able to do and all of you guys want to do, and in order for us to hit our targets, which allows us to give out bonuses to you guys and allows us to keep paying you guys and allows us to grow the company, I want to make sure that we all have alignment that these standards are fair. So, what do you guys think we should be doing differently? And I'm gonna get some feedback from my team, and I'm gonna ask them like, hey, if you guys were in my position, how would you run this division? How would you enforce people being late? I'm just gonna have like conversations with my people, and I'm gonna see what they have to say. We know most of the people because most people are just hard workers and they want to do a good job. They don't want any friction. They're thankful for the opportunity they have. You know what most of the people are going to say?
Yeah.
No
I think we're
issue.
good to go.
Yeah.
Hey, man, it's okay. Because you're telling me that the dude who's in his 30s or 20s or 30s or 40s that's literally never had an issue showing up late, you think he has any problem with his boss saying, hey, guys, we need to be here ready to go at 8 a.m.?
Yeah.
No, because that guy or gal just says, that's just what we're supposed to do. You do the
Yeah.
right, you know what I mean? Like, and you might have a small percentage of people that say, hey, you know what? Actually, like, man, I feel like as long as I'm getting the job done, it shouldn't matter when I show up, Nick. Like, if I show
Mhm.
up late because I want to avoid traffic and I get my work done, it shouldn't matter. And then you could actually entertain that idea and say, that's actually interesting. I've never thought of it that way.
Mhm.
Okay, JP, if you're in my position, how do you ensure the work gets done? Because you showing up 15 minutes late, but you get the work done, valid, not a big issue. But how do we make it to where people don't show up an hour late or 2 hours late and it negatively impacts the rest of the job? Because actually, your work impacts these other teammates.
Mm.
And so if you're late, they're picking up the slack because it makes it seem right. And so you start showing them why their ideas are flawed. You don't tell them, you
Mhm.
show them by asking them questions and allowing them to see it themselves.
You that I find interesting is in the scenario of someone in the scenario that you were painting that someone was leaving, you apologized and you apologized in a way that, hey, I'm sorry, it was my job to lead you or communicate how important you are to this company. And I feel like there's so much um advice in the professional environment that tells you to avoid apologies where it's like and I know like you're furrowing your brow for those that can't see JP right now, but it's almost as though no, it's not your fault that they're leaving. You don't apologize for something because now you're accepting that responsibility where they've chosen to do this. And where I'm going with this is, I don't always agree with it. I do, especially if it's through email. I always think my response through. And recently,
Yeah.
like, there's been a lot of turnover and there's been a number of different reasons why people have left. And I've really had to reflect on it a lot and I've, for me, it's like, I've always pointed it back to me. It's like, listen, this is on me and I need to understand why, people are leaving or why I have to let people go. And it's been very difficult for me.
Yeah.
And, and what I guess my question is there a scenario going back to that guy that's leaving because you're gonna write him up that you would fight for him? And I don't mean fight for him in the manner of like, hey, I won't
Yeah.
write you up as long as you
No,
stay.
no, they're
But
still getting written up, but I'm going to give them the opportunity to stay with me.
mhm,
I'm going to understand that they are making what? an emotional or logical decision? What emotion are they making at that moment when they're like, you know what, you're going to write me up, I'm quitting? Is that emotional or logical?
Sure. Yeah.
Emotional.
We know it's emotional. So I'm going to say, hey, Tyler, I understand why you're frustrated, and it's valid. Your feelings are valid. I've been in your same position before. But here's one thing that I do know. You're a hard worker. I care about you. And I have done a horrible job communicating to you why it's important that we're here on time. This was not an attack on you. This was an exposure to my failures as a leader. So I
Mm.
want to give you a day to think about it. I care about you. The team loves you. So if you want to continue working with us, I would love for you to stay a part of the team. If you don't, I respect that decision. And if there's anything I can do to help you in the future, let me know. If you need a good recommendation in
Yeah.
regards to your work ethic, I got you, bud.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
You
know
leave it.
why we don't want to do that? You know why we don't want to do that? You know why people say don't apologize? Because
What?
their ego gets in the way and they don't apologize. So now, for them to feel good about their actions,
Mm.
I'm just going to tell everybody else, like, hey, Tyler, Nick, you guys shouldn't be apologizing to them. They quit. Screw them. They're weak. Don't apologize for that.
Mm.
You know why I'm telling you guys to do that? So that I feel better about myself when I'm not apologizing. What's the reason? Why would you not apologize? It's because your ego. Think about it. You guys ever had friction with a significant other?
Never.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And you just know, the only thing that you need to do at that moment is what?
Apologize.
Hey, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But have you guys ever wanted to apologize and you just felt this physical reaction that was holding you back from it for
Yeah.
no reason other than what?
My
Your
ego.
ego. It
Yeah.
was 100% your ego. And it's the same
It's like
thing.
to prove her right. It's like I'm not apologizing. That wasn't my fault. You know, I didn't switch the laundry. I didn't put the whites with the dark clothes. Like,
Yeah.
mm,
And so then when you recognize, you're like, oh, and then you find a way to connect yourself back to it. And you just say, hey, you know what, honey, I'm sorry. I know I'm gone a lot for work. And when I'm home, I've been doing a horrible job taking stuff off your plate because, to be honest, I I've been a little selfish because when I'm at home, I just want to relax. I just want to hang out with you and the kids. And in reality, what I need to be doing is making sure that you're taken care of and making sure that we finish everything around the house together and then we can relax together. So hey, moving forward, these are the things I'm going to do to help. You know what I mean? And if we
mm.
just had that simple little conversation, how much how much of a difference do you think that would make in your marriage, in your relationship?
It's significant, and I think one of the things that people struggle with is that they're like, "Oh, I can do that, but she'll never reciprocate." Which it's like that's naturally a question I think I want to ask, but then it's like when you really think about it, it's like, well, if you're constantly owning up to the things that you're not living up to and you're communicating it, it's the whether it's your significant other or a peer or a friend or an employee, it's like if you're showing ownership, the human reaction would be that they're going to show ownership back.
Eventually, maybe initially, maybe a long time, but that's the other thing is we don't take ownership in hopes that somebody else takes ownership.
Yeah.
We take ownership because it's the right thing to do. And you're right. What you're saying is right, Nick, is eventually they'll start taking ownership because they see
Mm.
that it's the right thing to do. And that's when you start to create this culture around taking ownership. It's a great culture to have. When you have a culture and an environment where people are literally fighting to take ownership instead of blaming each other, that's pretty cool.
At what point do you question the mission? As far as if nothing changes and the same things tend to continue to happen, at what point do you I understand accepting accountability for that and owning all of this, but at what point do you question if what you're doing needs to change or if it's the right thing?
That's a great question. I really like this question because I've dealt with this multiple times over the years as a young adult. You know, when I was in the SEAL teams and I was transitioning out of the SEAL teams, it wasn't because I didn't believe in the mission of being in the SEAL teams anymore. I just had a different priority. I had a different mission, and that was to be there for my wife and kids and to make that marriage work. I'd already had a failed marriage, and the environment that I was a part of, it wasn't conducive to me staying in the SEAL teams. And so I had to get out and move to North Mississippi so that I could be there for Amanda and Aiden and then our twin daughters that were on their way. Like my wife was pregnant with twins. Aiden was 4 years old when I came into the picture. So her up and leaving Mississippi with Aiden to come to San Diego, where all of a sudden now I'm going to be gone all the time. Is that fair to her, our twin daughters, and Aiden and her family back home? Not even close. So I had to shift my mindset of like, okay, cool. What's my new mission? What's my new priority? Okay, it's to be a good husband, to be a good father. Cool. I'll fill in the blanks in regards to income. And so I got a job doing sales at a financial company, and it was cool. I was making good money, but I failed to understand the mission behind that. The mission was to actually provide for my family, and it was to take care of my customers. And I never I was just going through the motions. And so I failed to understand like what that mission was. And so I started to self sabotage a lot of things. And so for you as an individual, you have to understand like, hey, are you still getting fulfillment? Are you able to serve and lead and take care of people? Do you have actual impact? Can you deliver impact? And if you can't do those things, then yeah, you need to do an honest self reflection and figure out, okay, hey, has has the mission shifted and changed? Do you need to find a new mission, or do you need to do some internal recalibration and realign with what you should be doing?
It's a good perspective. I feel a lot of what we run into, I know myself, I know Nick, oftentimes people leave for something easier or there's less hours, there's less pressure, the standard isn't quite as high. And I think a lot of times you internalize that and you're like, is it just me? Am I
So
being too hard on them? Am I requiring too much? And I know Nick struggles with this, and
they don't have
I'm
enough ownership. Sorry to
it's
interrupt you, but I just everything you're saying and you're about to say, they don't have enough ownership.
And that
They
so
don't have buy-in.
I
and
mean
that
that's what I tell Nick
yeah.
all the time. I'm like, Nick, like they don't have enough, they don't own enough of what they're doing. It's not important enough to them to stay and to go through this. Like if they're going elsewhere because something's easier to pays more, then like so be it. That's not who's supposed to be there. You have to find different people.
Yeah, and I love that you say that because it's also a reminder of remember controlling what we can control.
Mhm.
Like, hey, and here's at the end of the day, Nick, you are the only one that can do an honest self reflection. Tyler, you're the only one that can do an honest self reflection on you. I'm the only one that can do an honest self reflection on me. And it's when we can figure out how to do those things and then really, really understand, like, okay, hey, what's important, what's not, then that's when things really start to shift and change. And when people are leaving, I'm always going to look at that of like, okay, hey, what did I do wrong? And when people leave, like maybe you create like an out process interview when people leave, and you say, hey, you know what, hey JP, I just want to let you know that I really appreciate the last 18 months you've been working here. Man, we've had some really cool memories. We worked on some really cool projects. Hey, I understand that this other company is offering you a little more money and less hours, and I get it. That's definitely appealing. And with your family and your kids and everything, hey, more time is very valuable. Unfortunately, I'm not able to provide that same environment yet. I'm hoping to in the future.
Mhm.
But hey, besides the money and the time, was there any other reasons why you chose to leave?
Yeah, I think that I did that for a long time. I would sit down and have this exit interview, and recently they've become shorter and shorter. Um, And I think some of that came down to frustration with, um, why some people left and why I let some people go. And, what you said a minute ago, or I think Tyler, you said it is like, ultimately, maybe I just, maybe it is them that maybe they don't have enough ownership. And that's where the, I think taking that extreme ownership route and thinking about this is my fault. This is, and I'm going to own the reason I'm going to take ownership of the reason that they're leaving, and not being able to connect that with the fact that they also don't have ownership, or they're not taking ownership,
Yeah,
and ultimately they're not fit for that role. And and truthfully, like a few months ago, I was sitting down, and someone had left, and I was sitting down with my team, and I was sitting there, I was just like spilling like, hey, this was me, that this is because I did this, and they were like, will you just shut the fuck up for a second and realize that they weren't supposed to be here.
that's also something that's
And
can contribute. But
I
I
was
like
like,
your default, Nick. Your default should always be ownership. It's always on you. And here's the thing: there is also the aspect of like, hey, some of these people just don't deserve to be here, and that's
mm,
okay, dude. I'll tell you what, man. In over the years working for Echelon Front, I'm willing to bet you can imagine I've gotten some pretty legit offers from other companies that are
sure,
because their thought is like, well, if we bring JP on board, then we just get Echelon Front embedded into our people 24/7.
yeah,
Bro,
classic.
I've had insane offers, like almost double what I was making with about half the time of
Hmm.
actual work. It was they were going to fly me out. They had this company jet that they had guys in the Dallas area that they flew, and so it was like, hey, we'll pick you up on the jet. You'll come out early on a Tuesday. You'll work Tuesday, Wednesday. We'll have you home on Thursday night, and then Friday through Monday, like it was my family time. They're like, you're not going to be working those days. We just want boom, and it was an insane offer of money. And I just told them, and they're like, so, what's the percentage of us being able to facilitate this offer? And I said, 0%. I said, now I appreciate the offer. I really do. I said, but Jocko and Leif have given me ownership over everything with this company.
Hmm.
So as this company grows and expands, I will be a part of every single thing that we do. And I really care about my customers and I care about what I do. And I also care about you guys, and I think you guys are a great company. And I wish I was in a position where I could deliver more impact to you guys regularly, but there's a 0% chance that I leave. And so that's like the Cliff Notes version of this long
Sure,
conversation
yeah.
I had with them. And I called Jocko and Leif, and I texted them. I said, "Hey, I need to talk to both of you guys right now." And so I get on a call and I said, "Hey, I just want to let you guys know I had this offer. This is what I told them. Full transparency. Just want to let you guys know." And it was cool because we had a really good conversation. And they know I've had multiple of those offers over the years. The thing that always goes back to it's I know Jocko and Leif care about me more than they care about themselves. And I'm not saying that you don't, Nick. And I know that you do care about your people. But the thing I'm going to challenge you with is do your people know that?
Yeah, I mean, I know the answer to that based on feedback, and I don't, and they feel differently than I
Okay.
do. Yeah, fair.
So cool. You have your intel. You
Hmm.
now have your intel and you can create a mission that you can go execute upon. And I'm telling you, man, I know for a fact Jocko and Leif want me to win, and they care more about me winning than them winning
Hmm.
every single day. And that's why I would never leave to go do anything else for any amount of money because I'm not going to find anybody else that's going to care about me at that level. And I'm not going to find another opportunity that is as fulfilling as what I get to do right now. It's not going to
Well,
happen.
that comes with a certain level of accountability for you as well. And I think the difference that what Nick runs into is that like your offer, they were trying to sell you on less ownership and less accountability and more money. And it's almost as if like the goal, the dream nowadays is to do less and have less responsibility and make more.
Yeah.
And I don't feel that there's as many people, and I don't know if it's just today, like you have to be around our age. I don't know if it's just today or something changed or if it's getting worse, but it seems that less people want ownership.
I would actually argue that it's the counter because and the only reason why I argue that in a professional standpoint is because every single company I've worked with over the last 7 years, every single one, the companies that start driving ownership down to their people, the culture changes. 100% of the time, the
Mm.
culture changes when people are driving more ownership. Now, here's the thing, Tyler, me giving you ownership doesn't mean that I'm giving you more things to do. Sometimes it does mean that physically you're going to have more tasks to get done, but we're talking about ownership over coming up with ideas and plans. So if you work for me, I say, hey, Tyler and Nick, here's what we need to get done, and here's why. Here's here's this project we're working on. This is what we need to accomplish. Here's the time frames. Here's why we need to get done in these time frames. Here's why we need to get it done this way per this customer's request. How do you guys want to get that job done? Within those parameters, how do you want to get the job done? You're going to be the one working on the job every single day. What makes the most sense to you? That's what we're talking about in regards to driving ownership. Because now you, Tyler, you and Nick get to create the plan together.
Mhm.
And who wouldn't want that? Who
I
wouldn't
feel like
want that?
I feel like so many people don't want that. Like, and maybe it's our industry. I'm sure it's everywhere. It seems as though most people, they want to show up, they want to get a paycheck. They don't like, if you were like, hey, we can give you more ownership or more responsibility or more money or whatever it is, like you can create your own jobs or have more time off. So many people would be like, I want more time off. And I don't know if that's just industry related. Like Nick and I were just we just had a podcast where we were like, why isn't everyone who works for us podcast, construction, performance related pay? Where it's like you have a base salary, you shoot what you kill, and find people who are just motivated to own their jobs, own their work, do more work. And I'm like, I don't know how well that would work with even Nick, the people who have left. If you were to have offered a scenario as JP's alluding to, would that have made a difference, or do you think like they were gone anyway?
No, well, I think I think we were flawed because it was presented that way. It's like, hey, here are the parameters. Everyone knows the parameters. Quality first, and here's the schedule, here's the budget. And and I remember having conversations and saying, "Hey, this 18 months to build this house." And they're like, "Can't do it. It's got to be 22 months." It's like, "No, the job is 18 months. You have 18 months to complete the job. It's not we can't do it in 18 months." And it was just constantly challenged. I'm like, "Listen, the job was sold for 18 months. And to say that it can't be done is not true. Let's play crazy scenarios. The casino in Boston, that was built in 2 years. And my team's like, "Yeah, but they were working around the clock." I'm like, "Oh, sure, but it's 1,000,000 square feet and they built 1,000,000 square feet in 2 years, right?" "Yeah, but they had thousands of people worked 3 shifts." It's like, "All right, so if we built the house in 3 shifts with thousands of people, could we get it done in 18 months?" Well, yeah, but we don't have the budget for that." It's like, "Right, but we also don't need to run 3 shifts." What and I would challenge, and this was actually right after the council, because one of the things that we talked a lot about is asking the question rather than giving them the answer. It's like, well, what would you need? How could you paint this house in double the speed, double the time, like twice as fast? It's like, well, we would need 2 painting crews. It's like, all right, does it make sense to have 2 painting crews? Well, I guess we could put one on the first floor and one on the second floor. It's like, right. So it sounds like we could speed up the paint right there.
Yeah.
And so I would encourage it, but it was always faced with you, me, you, Nick, sold the job, too little money, too little time. And I think this is where Tyler's going with this is like, rather than saying, hey, these are the parameters I need to work within, it's nope, I wasn't part of the sale of the project and Nick lied to the customer and it's going to take what it takes to get it done. And that's super frustrating because I know it could be done faster. You could totally man up. There, you could double the amount of people on the job site and that wouldn't even impact the cost because double the amount of people, you're still expending the same amount of man hours to get it done. And that's where it's like, what that's what I question myself constantly is like, what was I doing wrong? Like I had to have skipped a step where they didn't feel as though that they had the ability to take the reins and run with that. Instead, they were just completely convinced that I was, to summarize, not good at my job, and I undersold the job. And the job was going to basically build itself at the pace and the amount of money that it required.
Yeah. So that, there's obviously some misalignment between these crews that work for you and what you're selling. And because they're telling you, you're selling it for too little and it's going to be done too fast. Okay. If we look at it through the lens of extreme ownership, how are they right and how are you wrong?
Mm,
And that's the hard thing is like, you're going to have to find a way to like get alignment with them in regards to, okay, hey, what's reasonable then? So if you work for me, Nick, and you're like, hey, we can't get it done in 19 months. We can't get it done in 18 months. It can only be done in 22 months or 24 months or whatever it is that they said to you. I'm going to
right.
ask you, okay, well, all right, Nick, explain to me why it cannot be done in 18 months.
Mhm,
Because based off of what I know in regards to your guys' work ethic, the standard and quality of work, and our competitors are able to get it done in 18 months.
mhm.
What do they have that we don't have?
Oh, they're not performing at as high quality. Their product's crap. Blah blah blah.
Okay, that might be fair, but it also might not be accurate. So why can they get the job done in 18 months and you can't? If you're so good, why aren't we winning? If you're so smart, why aren't we winning? And I'm not going to say that in a confrontational manner, but I'm going to really challenge them and say, hey, what am I missing? What am I missing, guys? Because if we give them, if they want it done in 18 months, but we're saying 22 months, they're going to go find somebody that can get it done in 18 months, and we lost the job.
Yeah, and that's
So
happened. That's
and when we lose these jobs, you guys lose income.
hmm,
So how do we make ourselves a little more efficient, a little more effective? How do we find a way to make this work? You can make excuses or you can make things happen. And then I'm gonna drive it back down to them. I say, all right, hey, here's the deal. We have to get it done in 18 months.
right.
How do we accomplish it? Let me know what we need to do to get it done. And then I'm gonna listen and I'm gonna support what's reasonable. And there's gonna be some things that naturally you're probably not gonna be able to do. And say, hey, I wish we could do that, but unfortunately we can't do this right now. There's a city here in Texas near where we live called South Lake, Texas. It's a very wealthy area. And my best friend grew up in that area. His parents own a home there. And when they had some construction work that needed to be done to the freeways, the city of South Lake put it out there to multiple companies and then made it performance based where, hey,
Mhm,
if you get it done within this window, this is what you get paid. If you get it done within this window, this is what you get paid. And to
mhm,
where there is an incentive for them to get it done at a high quality. So if any of the qualities weren't there, it docked their pay. If the
mhm.
time was longer, it docked their pay. So it made them all want to work as fast as possible while not cutting any corners.
Yeah,
And they were able to get a job done in months of what would take other parts of the state years.
yeah. Well, look at, I think it was Sanibel Island, right? That was an example when the bridge collapsed.
Yeah,
I think it was a couple years ago, and um, I forget who went out there, but they basically repaired the bridge in like 6 or 7 days. When it's like, normally it would have taken months, but it was because they needed to get it done.
yeah,
And there was this constraint, like, you need to get this repaired. People are stuck on the island.
yeah,
Like, got it. We'll get it done. 7 days later, bridge is back operational.
yeah. And that's the other thing, Nick, is like to Tyler's point, is like, hey man, you're gonna have some people that want it and some people that don't.
Yeah.
I'm gonna find the people that want it and I'm gonna freaking pour into them.
Mm,
I'm gonna just keep pouring gasoline on the fire. I'm gonna give them ownership. I'm gonna keep casting my vision into the whole team. But
mhm.
I'm gonna really focus on my Tylers, on my Nicks, the guys that want to be there, the guys that want to win. Bro, those are gonna be my go-to guys. But I'm also I'm also going to continue try to build up the rest of the group. Because you know why some of these people don't work hard and don't want ownership, Tyler? You know why why part of what you said is factual?
No, I mean possibly, but I don't think I know what you're
No, no,
alluding to right now.
I want to hear what you think. I truly, genuinely want to hear what you think.
I feel like a lot of people don't want accountability. They don't want to have to step up and do their best work or prove themselves. Oftentimes, like
Yeah,
I feel when
and
people
why is that? Why do you think that is?
confidence, self esteem,
And where does that come from?
where's their self esteem coming from or
Yeah,
confidence?
yeah. Why is it
Past inexperience, mistakes, relationships with other people who didn't necessarily support them.
boom? Other people didn't teach them why this is a way to do things. So now it's your obligation. It's your opportunity to show people why taking ownership wins. Why working hard is the best thing that you can do. Why having integrity is only going to make your life better. Why
Mm.
maintaining discipline is going to give you freedom. Like it's up to you guys.
Do you
You
think that
are in a position of leadership. It's
do,
your burden to carry.
do you think that that can be taught? Like, all see,
Yes.
I listen you speak, right, and this is something where I'm like, yeah, I'm down for that. I could work for him, and it's, I mean, but that's how I've been my whole life. That type of thing gets
Because
me
you were
going.
taught that. I was taught that from my dad and my grandfather and my mom and my aunts and uncles. These were taught skills. Leadership is a skill set.
Mm.
Now, we all have natural leadership traits that are a little more higher than others. But I mean, at the end of the day, all the things that's required to be a good leader, to do all the things that we're saying, hey, we need, those are skill sets. And we can teach people how to do those things.
It when you think of leadership, even me thinking leadership, or at what point in my life um, that somewhat came to fruition, and it was probably athletics, something when I was young, where nobody's stepping up, and it gets to the point where it's almost driven out of frustration, where it's like, well, I'm gonna say it if nobody else does, and then you realize that there's either a reaction or a support, or people start leaning on you for that. And I think that some people do roll with that, or some people shun away from that. And I think a lot of that does come down to what you were just saying, people being taught that, but then also having the confidence to be a leader and to screw up and know that you can get back on track and you can fix things. I think a lot of people don't want to be in that boat for fear of being wrong or making a bad decision, or having to have the accountability of owning up to when they make shitty decisions. And not everyone is cut out for that. And it's something that, until just speaking with you, I guess personality traits and like that being an innate trait within people, they're probably predisposed to being a natural leader, but that they can also be taught that.
Everybody can be taught how to lead. Every single person can be taught how to lead. It doesn't matter your background. It doesn't matter your traits. None of that.
But
Those
to
are all
clarify,
excuses.
but to clarify, that person wants to learn it as well. Like
Yeah,
everyone can learn it, but not
yeah,
everyone is going to learn it.
yeah. And it's us as leaders to create the influence.
Yeah. One of the
It's
things
cool.
I asked Leif when I was with you guys, because it was specific to this, where I had asked, I was like, "Is everyone just an A plus? Like, is everyone a 10 out of 10 leader? Like, everyone at the same caliber?" And the question came from, one of my partners in the millwork company. We were chatting about extreme ownership, and we kind of see it in a different light. I'm very much a believer in it, and he challenges it more than I do. And one of the things that came up is, like, you're talking about Navy SEALs. Navy SEALs are the cream of the crop. Like, everyone's an A plus, and they're just all operating at a different level. And I had
Not
asked
everybody.
and I had asked Leif that, and he's like, hell no.
No.
He's like, listen, like, and of course, he's like, well, our crew was definitely probably the best, but he's like, but everyone has a different rank. And what's important in that, and I'm paraphrasing, but like what was important in that is that everyone understands where they fit. And not everyone is going to be a 10 out of 10. You know, you're going to have, or an A plus, you're going to have the C plus players. And ultimately, they still have a role that they can fulfill.
Yeah. And
And
you
it's
can
just,
get a C plus to a B eventually.
yeah.
It takes time.
And I think, and I think it's important to say that out loud, because I do hear that feedback as to when you're talking about this, specific to the extreme ownership mentalities. There, you know, oftentimes I think people are considering that it's a different um, group of like-minded individuals, when the reality is it's not necessarily that. It's about understanding everyone's strengths and where they fit into the mission.
Yeah. Every single high performing team has a small select few that aren't high performers, that are just they're barely hanging in there.
Mm,
Now they provide value. And what's crazy is those low performers in that high performing organization do pretty well compared to other groups, right? And so now you're comparing
mhm,
low performers in a high performing group. Those low performers are still crushing it compared to everybody else. And
mhm,
so that's something that we have to understand. But yes, to reiterate what you just said, one, not every group is going to have everybody bought in. Two, if you want to learn the leadership skill sets, you have to be receptive and open to it.
mhm,
Well, how do you create that culture? Well, it's by you having influence over your people, by you having a good relationship, by people respecting you, by you setting a good example. The reason why we took ownership and I wanted to take ownership, the reason why I wanted to step up and lead and be default aggressive with solving problems, even though I was the youngest and most junior ranking guy, is because I respected Jocko. When Jocko was able to pull me aside and say, hey, I need your help. I need you to step up and be more aggressive with your leadership. I need you to be my go to guy. When Jocko was able to do that, guess what I wanted to do?
yeah,
I wanted to do those things. I actually wanted to be a better leader. And he knew, Tyler, that I had those hesitations and reservations of what you've been talking about. That's why every time you're like, yeah, but some people, and I immediately go, yeah, but, and I come back because I know it can be changed. I was that guy who was the lowest ranking, youngest guy in our task unit. And you know what I wanted to do, Tyler? I just wanted to do only what my boss told me to do.
Yeah.
And I wanted to work hard for my boss, but I didn't want to do anything above and beyond what he asked me to do because I didn't want to screw it up. But when Jocko, who had a good reputation and who had created a good relationship with me, said, hey, man, I need your help. I need you to be more aggressive with your leadership. I need you to help me solve these problems. Hey, Nick, I need your help, man. Like, I know that you say we can't get these jobs done in 18 months. You might be right. And if you're right, that's my fault for not having good alignment with you. But I man, to be honest, like I don't believe that it's going to take us 22 months. And I could
mm,
really use your help on this. You have a lot of experience, and I know you have the ability to influence the crew to step up. And if you could help me, I think we could get this done close to 18 months.
mm.
And what
That's
I'm going to do moving forward is make sure I have better alignment before I sell these jobs with what you think is feasible.
that's really good perspective, and a question that I was just thinking of while you were speaking was with regard to business, but also it could be applied to family, where how you're balancing all of this high performance, the standards, the motivation, the drive with how are you managing that with and balancing that with burnout, right? Where it's like you have a family, and I don't know how many kids I've seen where their parents are just driving, like living vicariously through them, driving them to be these athletes that they want them to be. And then the kid grows up and he's like, I can't stand this shit anymore.
Yeah.
And then just you almost answered my question without really even realizing it, where it's like, I think that a lot of this comes off as, yeah, we're driving this down people's throats, but it's not. Like asking somebody for help rather than being like, we need to get this done, but then going to them and saying, hey, like, I need your help to get this done, rather than
Yeah.
like, you need to get this done. um and I guess that my question was like, how do you balance that even with having a family? Like, how do you balance parenting your children with your own personality and what your goals are, being not too hard on them, being firm enough? Like, where's that line for you?
Well, we have really good relationships with our kids, and we maintain alignment on what's realistic and what's not. Now, my goal, and actually, I'm sorry, not my goal, but my obligation as a father is to push my kids to be better versions of what they think they're capable of. And that's no different than any leader, because you see more in somebody than they can see in themselves. And it's my job to instill confidence into my daughters, to instill confidence into my son, to instill a hard work ethic, to instill integrity, to instill discipline, all those things that we know are important. It's my job to actually teach them those things. And it's my job to instill it into them. And it's also my job to understand, like, hey, you know what? They're also kids. So, like my son had a wrestling tournament this last weekend, and he made a stupid mistake on his first match, and he got pinned. And I was mad because I know he could have won. Now, I wasn't mad at him. I was mad because I know he could have won. And when he got off the mat, I immediately, like, I gave him a hug. I put my hand on his shoulder and I said, "Hey, man, good job out there." I said, "Do you know the mistakes that you made?" Yeah. And we started talking through it. I said, "Man, you could have beat that kid." I said, "I'm not mad at you. I'm mad because you made a mistake that you shouldn't have made."
Yeah.
And so there's a difference there of me also showing him a standard at which he is capable of and that he
Mm,
should operate at.
yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like I show him what he's capable of. And you know what he did on the next 3 matches? Pinned every single kid. And then he lost his fifth match. Now, there's a lot of factors that went into it. At this point, they'd been at this tournament for 14 hours. Everyone's tired. They're smoked. He had some hard matches, and he made some mistakes. But at the end of the day, I'm not allowing him to have any of those things as excuses. I don't allow him to use any of those as an excuse. And we talked about it afterwards. We talked, and I'm like, "Hey, man, all right, what mistakes did you make? All right. What'd you do well?" And we started talking through, and we reviewed the video that I took. And it's a coaching opportunity for him to grow as a wrestler. But then I kept reiterating, "Hey, man, I'm so proud of how hard you worked. You didn't stop wrestling one time."
Yeah.
I, that kid came in here mocking you, thinking he was going to run through you. And when I said, "I can't wait for you to watch the video, when you see the look on his face when he realized you weren't an easy win," I said, "I'm proud of you." And so that's the balance, is that we instill confidence into our kids. We let them know that we're proud of them. We also reiterate, like, why hard work is important,
Mm,
but we also let them be kids because they're kids. And I'm not, like, there's just things that it's like, yeah, they should have done this today, but all right, whatever. Like, so you have to find that balance.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you wrestle growing up? Is that something that you got your son a little bit?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. I wrestled a bunch growing up, and I find there to be tougher sports, especially like as kids growing up, or I find that there are not tougher sports to teach people self-discipline and accountability and drive and work ethic than wrestling, because at the end of the day, you can blame whoever you want. You can blame the ref, but like, it was all in your hands. And
Yeah.
I think that that's why a lot of people aren't cut out to wrestle, because you can't point fingers at anyone. There's
Nope.
literally no one to blame. And I think that
Yeah.
it's a really, really good sport for young men. And I know there's a huge push for women's wrestling now
Yeah.
to get into.
Yeah. And that's why all of our kids also do jujitsu. And
Yeah,
our daughters train jujitsu, and our daughters are actually going to start wrestling probably next year,
yeah,
because of what you just said. Um, but it instills confidence into them, and it's a great life lesson. That's like, hey, you got beat because they were better than you.
uh huh.
They were better than you in that moment. Maybe not in
Mhm.
general, but at that moment, they were better than you. Why? Because you got complacent, you got overly confident, you allowed the disease of victory to creep in. You went in there thinking, oh, it's going to be an easy match. They caught you off guard, they took you down, and now they're on top of you, right? And so life gives us the opportunity to train. Everything that goes on in life is a training opportunity. And so we use wrestling and jujitsu to teach these leadership lessons to our kids. And it's the same thing that you guys can do with these crews and these, different groups that you're working with. It's, the ability to have conversations and talk through things with people is so valuable, and focusing on building those relationships and again driving ownership. And it's like the crews, okay, if the crews are like, hey man, we can't get this done in 18 months, the best thing that Nick can do is say, hey, you know what, I'm sorry, I did not get alignment with you on this. If you truly believe that you cannot get it done in 18 months and it's going to take 22 months, I clearly am not aligned with you, and that's embarrassing because I know these other companies are getting it done in 18 months. And yeah, they might be cutting corners and not have the same quality of work as we do, but it's my fault for not communicating the importance of us getting it done in 18 months. And
Mhm.
I've failed to give you the resources and tools that can enable you to get it done in 18 months. Because hey Nick, if you had all the resources and tools that you felt were important to get the job done in 18 months, is that something you can get it? And so I'm gonna take ownership, and I'm gonna drive it back to them to have
Mhm.
reasonable conversations,
Yeah.
knowing that or there's going to be some back and forth on these conversations. And I might have somebody that's just unreasonable that's going to say, well, we need all this new. And it's like, hey, man, I would love to be able to buy you all that new equipment. That would be amazing. One day, that's my goal, is that we have access to all the high level equipment. Right now, we don't have that ability. Here's what we have to work with, knowing what we have to work with. How do we get across the finish line close to 18 months? And then I'm going to give and take in that conversation.
It's something that people don't realize, and I think wrestling taught me, but not until after the fact. And I wish that, as looking back on my youth, I wish that my coaches had done a better job of explaining this to me, because they had said it to me, but it didn't really make sense until I got older and looked back on my wrestling career, where you would have a match with somebody and they would be like, you can beat this person, like it's your self-confidence and your self-strength that you don't realize, and that's the only difference between here, that you're capable of doing that. And I didn't realize till after the fact, where you look back on those matches and those times in your life, and you realize that, like, the only person, or the only reason that that person may have been better than you or beat you, is because they outworked you, whether they outworked you before the match with their dieting, with their strength training,
Yeah.
over the summer, whatever it is. And I realized that as I progressed in life, even what we're talking about now, where it's like your business, if somebody is a better business than you, they're more than likely outworking you behind the scenes. There's
100%.
something that they're doing that you don't and like, you see these people and you put these people on a pedestal, or that they're elite because of this, that, or the other thing. And 99%, there's exceptions to every rule, right? Some people are born into money and situation as a no people, but like 99% of the time, it's because they've outworked you, or put processes in, or trained more than you have, and that's why they have what they have. And people don't realize that no matter who you are, where you come from, that you can be that person, or you can be better than that person if you put the work into it.
You got to put the work in. Even the scenario, like you said, hey, if they're born into money or they inherit a company, just because you're born into money doesn't mean you're going to have a successful company. Just because you inherit a company doesn't mean that you're going to be this great leader. No, you got to work on building those relationships. And I know of a few people that literally inherited companies, and they're running these companies that do hundreds of millions of dollars a year, and they're in their early 20s. And I help them work through those things. And you know what they always say? It's a
I
lot of
don't.
work. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work because they understand how important it is to maintain the culture and what was built before them. and they have this obligation, this honor, this burden to carry that on. And those are the companies that will maintain. Now, the people that come in and inherit companies that just take it for granted, unfortunately, those companies fall apart because eventually that one bad leader can ruin the whole organization.
Hmm.
Eventually. Now, most of the time, it doesn't happen right away because they already have strong leaders inside there that are able to maintain things. But that one bad leader can cause that cancer to go throughout the whole organization.
I was listening to a podcast that you were on. I actually forget which podcast it was. I was kind of listening to a couple this week as I was at work, and one thing that you had mentioned was around prioritizing things in your life, and I wanted you to expand on that a little bit. But essentially, it was looking at a scenario and rather than saying I don't have time for it, to shift that to it's not a priority of mine. And that was like eye opening for me, because the perspective shift there is like, yeah, I'm not making time for this.
That's
um
100% factual because it, and geez, man, I think I've said it on every podcast I've ever done. And then when I'm speaking with companies, because it's the truth, you're not allowed to say, I don't have time. It's just not a priority. And if you
Right.
can look at it from that standpoint, it's like, hey, I don't have time to train these crews. Well, no, it's not a priority. I don't have time to go sit and talk with my mid-level managers. It's an hour drive to their location. No, it's just not a priority. I could say the same thing with my family. Like, hey, I don't have time to, go to jujitsu with my daughters tonight. No, it's just not a priority, right? And it's like you got to balance out what's important and what's not. And if it's important, you'll get it done. If it's not, then it won't be done. And that's something that you have to be honest with.
yeah, and that was something like the one that you had said where I don't have time to go to dinner with my wife, or I don't have time to go to my kids recital, or whatever it may be. And to then say, no, that's just not a priority for me, was like, yeah, that makes total sense. Where
Yeah.
I'm
It
just
feels a
not like,
lot different.
it feels way different, because
Yeah.
like I don't know how many times in my life I don't have time to do that. I don't have time to do this. But then to think like I'm not prioritizing this monumental occasion in my daughter's life because I have like a customer that I need to do something for,
Hmm.
really shifted my perspective on things. Which was it was just one of those things where I was like, I somewhat got stopped dead in my tracks, and I rewound it and was like, what the hell did I just hear? I was like, shit, I've used that line a lot.
Yeah. Oh, we all have, man. I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to meal prep. I don't have time to fill in the blank, right? It doesn't matter. Like we've all used that excuse and it's a lie. And what Tyler, when we realize that it's a lie, then we can combat it. And it's like,
Hmm.
okay, yeah, like the example you said, you have this recital with your daughter, but your customer's wanting to get something done. I believe the honesty and open lines of communication helps us all work through problems. And so let's say I have this project that Nick's my customer. And then I have like this wrestling tournament with my son. And Nick's like, hey man, I need these things done by tonight at 9 p.m. I say, hey Nick, you know what, man, I'm really sorry I failed to get this done in a timely manner. Um, I'm not going to be able to get it done by 9 p.m. because my son has a wrestling tournament tonight that starts at 6. And I told my son that I would do my best effort to make it to every single one of his wrestling matches this year because it's his senior year. And this is my last year watching him wrestle. Now, this is 100% my fault because it should have been done yesterday. Is there any way I can get it done by tomorrow afternoon? Or are you comfortable with me handing this off to another crew to get it done by 9 p.m. tonight? If it's mission critical, I will pass it off to another crew. And if this is a deal breaker in our working relationship, I will make sure I get it done tonight. I just got to communicate to my son the mistakes that I've made.
Yeah.
And you know what? Honesty, 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 honesty. It is your fault for it not being done in time because
Yeah.
if I know that my son has a wrestling tournament tonight at 6 o'clock, why am I not focused on getting all my work done in a timely manner?
Hmm.
And if I can delegate it, I'm going to delegate it. If I can't, then you know what? Then strategically, the best thing strategically is for me to maintain a good relationship with my client, because if this is a make or break, do you think my son wants us not to make money?
Mm.
Yeah, my son wants us to be there to wrestle, but if I have a good relationship with my son and I've been communicating with my son, and I now go to my son and say, "Hey, bud, I know I was supposed to be here tonight at your wrestling tournament. I'm really sorry. I fell behind on this project, and if I don't get this project done by tonight at 9 o'clock, I'm going to lose this contract, and this is going to have a really negative impact on our family's income.
I
I'm
think
so
that
sorry."
I think the important thing here is like that's it's honesty throughout. Where I think a lot of times in those situations, there's it's never the full truth. It's
It's
like,
got to
hey,
be
I'm
honesty with yourself too.
Yes,
100%. But like, I think a lot of people go into that situation where it's like, well, I don't want to tell my client I have a wrestling match because they don't give a shit about my kid and they have kids that they're not able to go see their wrestling match. But it's like, sure, that might be the situation, but it's still you're still in this position because you put yourself in this position.
yeah. And yeah, exactly. And you continue to take ownership because
Yeah.
it's the right thing to do. And man, I've been in situations with clients where they are like, hey, we have you set to talk from this moment to this moment, and I explained to them, I'm like, hey, I actually can't talk during that time. Um, the per the contract that you guys filled out, it has me speaking in the morning, and my travel's already been booked because I have to get back. My son has a wrestling tournament that I'm actually helping with, and
Mhm.
so my travel's been booked. The agreement form that you guys filled out, you guys said that I'm speaking from 7:30 to 9, and that's why I booked this flight. I can't close out the day of training, and this is literally a call that I just had recently.
Mhm.
And I told him, I'm like, I'm really sorry about this. Would you like me to find another instructor to take my spot that could close out the day? And they immediately were like, no, 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 we want you there. And it was because I was honest and I took ownership over like the fact I was like, I said, hey, this is my fault for not verifying this with you before we booked travel.
Mhm.
Um, and the client immediately was like, well, no, we filled out that time. That's on us. I said,
Mhm.
okay, so are we still good with me speaking from 7:30 to 9? They said, absolutely. And then somebody else chimed in. They're like, plus, you being at your son's wrestling tournament is much more important than you closing out our day. You being at our training is what's important. The time is not that relative.
Mhm.
They just wanted me to close out the day to kind of wrap it up. But then I explained to them, I'm like, hey, if I speak at the very beginning, I set the tone for all the other speakers for you guys to build off of extreme ownership. And guess what? The client was like, it was zero factor. It was no factor to them at all. Flip side, I've also been in situations where the client was like, no, you're set to speak from this time to this time. And I said, okay, awesome. I'm sorry. Obviously, there's miscommunication on our end. And what's funny is like I looked through all the stuff. Our team did nothing wrong. Our team did nothing wrong. But you know what? This lady really wanted me to speak at this time and she was super adamant. What happened is she mixed up the times and she put together this big thing and sent it out to all the people,
Mhm.
and her ego would not allow her to say that she made a mistake and changed the schedule. So she was like hard on it.
Yeah.
And I said, all right, because at the end of the day, we do the right things for the right reasons and we take care of our clients. And I realized that one, she was frustrated with herself, and I had to have some empathy for her because guess what? She's got a lot on her plate. And
Mhm.
now she's stressed out and thinks, and I told her, I was like, hey, you know what? This is not an issue. I will change my travel. I will 100% be there during these times. I really look forward to working with you and your team. And, everything's going to be okay. It's
And
not.
this Yeah, and despite her ever admitting it, like, inside, she knows you did her a solid. Like, she
Yeah.
might never admit it, but she's like, "Man, JP really saved me here." And that might pay off or it might not, like,
And
but
it
you
did
go
because this was a while ago. And since that happened, I've done two more workshops with them.
right.
And I'm not saying that's because of that, but
JP
again,
will do it anytime you tell him.
well, you do. Well, also, I created a new SOP based off
Yeah,
of that,
exactly, right.
which is great. It was a learning opportunity for us. It's like, hey, you know what? And so, which again, it was no factor.
Mm,
And you do the right things for the right reasons. And for us, we take care of our customers and our clients. It's the same thing that you guys do. And here's the aspect, Nick, that you could also reiterate into the culture of your crews is like, hey guys, we do the right things for the right reasons.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
if our customers need it done in 18 months, you know what? That's the reputation that I'm proud that we'll have. And guys, I know it's going to be difficult. And it's a slow chipping away process at the way people are conditioned. Like we were talking about earlier, Tyler. Like some of these people have never been taught or developed to work hard, to do these things that we know. Like you also have to take for granted. You were a freaking wrestler, bro. You know how many people just don't have that mindset? 99% of the people you talk to you're not gonna be able to relate to them, nor can they relate to you. You know, it's like awesome. Like, I love this about my son. It's a badge of honor for him to be like, I'm a wrestler.
Yeah.
Like he will literally say that certain times that my wife and I are just like, it's so awesome. He's like, it's because I'm a wrestler. And I'm like,
How old
shit,
is he?
he's a senior.
Oh, okay.
It listening.
It's just this awesome mindset that he has.
Yeah.
And he's a hard worker.
Yeah.
It'll come down to like eating food. Like, we were out to eat, and a while ago, my daughters were like, Bubba, you're not going to be able to eat all that food. He's like, I'm a varsity wrestler.
Hell yeah.
It's like, dude,
I'm not cutting weight anymore. It's so funny that so much of what you're saying, and by no means am I trying to minimize this, but so much of it is so simple, and I feel it's the
Mm.
way that I talk to my children, and it's the way that I want to raise my children, and them having ownership and me being accountable for the shit that they do wrong because they're probably not just learning it on their own.
yep.
And so much of what you're saying, it's just common sense. And it's almost as though we've gone through life and we've picked up all of these experiences and they've shifted us and morphed us into something that's completely different than all of these principles we were taught.
Yeah.
And it's like we need to go back to like basics.
Yeah.
What were we taught as children to do the right thing and to be accountable for your actions and to be kind to, and like it's not that difficult, but it has to be. Like there has to be, people do easier things, but it shouldn't be that hard.
Dude, and I know this isn't the purpose behind this podcast, but I gotta say, I know I'm not on video for people listening. I don't know, but here's the deal: what you're talking about, what we've been talking about, these things have been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. It literally was written in the Bible. Like
Yeah.
everything that we talk about today, these are biblical principles. Whether you believe in that or not, I'm telling you, the oldest book in history has been talking about what we've been talking about all day long. And there's a lot of great leadership books out there. Jocko and Leif have written great books. Jocko has written great leadership books. And I know we're like at the end of our time, so just kind of like my thought to what you were just saying as we wrap this up is if we don't do these things, Tyler, if we don't take ownership, Nick, who's going to?
Yeah.
If we're not going to train the new generation why it's awesome to work hard, who's going to? It's up to us 100%. It is our burden to carry. And
Mm.
when you use the laws of combat that we teach at Echelon Front, it allows that burden to get lighter, and it allows that burden to actually be doable to where it's not miserable and it's enjoyable hard work because it's fulfilling, it's satisfying to you and the people around you. You're making a difference, and it becomes a part of the mission of who you are. So
Yeah.
to go back to what you were talking about, Tyler, earlier about in regards to the mission, what if your mission in life was just to make better leaders? Now, whether that was you working at McDonald's or at a coffee shop or at a big construction company or at a pharmaceutical company, it doesn't matter. Whether it's being a high school teacher or a Sunday school teacher, what if your mission was just to make better leaders around you? How much better would the world be? And that's the way we got to look at it. It is up to us. The titles don't matter. The positions don't matter. The companies don't matter. The industries don't matter. What matters is us taking ownership over our attitudes, over our mindset and helping create better leaders around us. That's what we need to be focused on.
Absolutely. I appreciate all the perspective.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Obviously,
the opportunity.
JP, I appreciate you being on, and I will say, like, the way you wrap that up is spot on, because my time with you guys, I remember being there, and I was high anxiety day one because I was dealing with a situation back home. And you, Leif, and Jocko at one point or the other sat down with me and walk through the scenario.
Yeah,
Um, and when I left, like, that's what I kept remembering. I remember my wife texted me. She was like, "How was it?" I was like, "It was really good." And she goes, "What'd you learn?" I'm like, it wasn't something that I learned. It was just the reinforcement that these principles are simple, and I'm just not taking the correct action.
nice.
And and that I think is the most important part. It's like, this isn't a fad, this isn't a system, it's not a process, it's just going back to the basics,
Yeah,
um and
yeah,
supporting that.
dude. So we have a muster coming up in January. It's going to be in San Diego, and we're doing something for the first time because the muster's on a Monday, Tuesday. And on Wednesday, we're going to be running an FTX, a field training exercise. I don't know what your schedule looks like, but maybe check it out. Shoot me an email because this will be the first time we've ever done it to where, and it's for muster attendees only. So you come to the muster, you get all this information. It's 2 full days of this leadership workshop with Jocko, Leif, the whole team, and
Yeah,
then on day 3, it's
the
hands-on
FTX, yeah.
application of all the stuff that we talked about in the field training exercises. So
Okay,
that's cool.
I'll shoot
Where
you
yeah.
an email
so
after.
so if somebody wants to get a hold of you, find out what you do. I know you have a podcast now. What's the best way? Where's
Yeah.
the best place to find you?
So if you're trying to reach out to me or follow me on, it's at JP Dinnell, JPDINNELL, on Instagram, LinkedIn, same thing. And then the podcast is JP Dinnell Podcast. But in regards to what we were just talking about for Echelon Front, if someone was just to go to echelonfront.com, ECHELONFRONT.com, they can check out all that information and see what the different services that we have to offer. And we do keynotes and workshops with companies. We do long range development programs where we help create custom leadership programs for people. And then we do all of our hands-on scenario-based leadership training, which we call the field training exercises, where it's an application of all these things that we've talked about.
Cool. We appreciate your time again. We understand
Yeah.
you're busy, a lot going on, I'm sure, as everyone else, but we appreciate you taking time out of your day to hop on a phone call with us for a couple of hours.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. And again, thank you for your flexibility. I know we had to change this last minute,
You're good,
last
man.
time, but I appreciate it, guys.
Awesome. Well, we'll chat soon. I'll shoot you an email about that event, and hopefully we can link up.
All right, sounds good, guys.
See ya.
Tyler, it's very nice to meet you,
Yeah,
man.
good to meet you. Nick will tell you how to get off of this.
Yeah, so hold
Leave
on.
studio.
Yeah, so when you hit leave studio, it's just gonna let you know that you gotta leave the browser open until it's uploaded,
Oh,
and
okay.
you should be like 99% uploaded at,
Cool.
and once it says 100%, you can close the browser.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
man.
Later,
Appreciate it.
man.
Appreciate
Take care.
everything. Take care.
He's a good dude.
Yeah.
Dude, I will like it's. I'm so glad that you and him touched on that in the very end. Is just like how simple it is, and it's back to the basics, because that's exactly how I felt when I left. It's like, the event's not inexpensive, especially the console, and it was 2.5 days or something like that, and or yeah, I think it was 2.5 days. And when I left, it's like I go into that expecting this huge deliverable, and for me to leave and be like
Ah,
completely
this was the secret.
yeah, this was the secret. And I left, and I remember feeling so empowered, and feeling so much clarity. And Meg asked me, like, "What'd you learn?" And I'm like, I didn't learn something. It was just that it was that I was, you know, it was reinforced that I was doing the right things. I just needed to bring it back to the basics, and simplify my process, and just frankly, allow a lot of those things to happen. Um, yeah, I mean, he rattled off a handful of events at the end. They do so many events.
Really?
Like, their schedule is bananas. if you go to echelonfront.com, it's mind-boggling how many events that they can pump out, and they're high quality. And you guys likely a longtime listener of this podcast, Aaron Witt from Build Witt Media. I mean, he was the one that turned me on to their program, and he just hosted their first conference for the dirt world. And Jocko and his team actually came down to that conference, and you know, he was like, it was lights out. It was amazing add to his event as well. So definitely worth checking out, especially if you're at all interested in the leadership side.
Yeah, I interesting conversation. A lot of good, valuable information. Again, not really rewriting the rule book, not rewriting history. It to me, which is somewhat how I look at life and business and everything else. You have to own everything. You have to own the good, the bad, the mistakes. You have to take the mistakes in stride and learn from them and document them. And I find it troubling to see how you would run a business any other way, run your life any other way. I think that it's so easy today to just look to other people, compare what other people are doing, or justify what you're doing because everyone else is doing it. And I think that if you really take a step back and just do what you need to do for yourself, for your business, for your mission, that you're gonna be in the position that you need to be in. So that was a fun conversation.
Yeah. Well, appreciate it. As I
Hmm, hmm,
Yeah.
hmm.
Yeah, let's edit that out. No, just leave it. Appreciate you guys listening. Hop on to iTunes. Make sure you leave us a review. Let us know. We get some great guests coming up. And if you guys haven't already, I know we shipped out a ton of those #2 pencils, the Musgrave custom Modern Craftsman pencils made here in the United States. If you guys haven't ordered them, make sure you get them ordered because we do have a limited run. And, well, you know what? For those that are watching this on YouTube, I'm going to give you a sneak peek of another product.
Whoa, we got. I'm watching. This is a sneak peek for me too.
So,
Oh, all right, I've seen it.
I know. Well, if you're not watching this on YouTube, you'll have to go check it out on YouTube. This will be the next product that we're launching. We just got these in. They're dope.
Color's dope too.
See you guys next week.